hope that stays. It's going to be bad. All right, good morning, everybody. My name is Greg, and it's not going to stay. I'll try over there. All right, as Brian said, I am Greg, and I work at Untappd. I'm the CTO and co-founder. I live in New York, and I actually do Untappd as a part-time gig, believe it or not. It's turning into a full-time role in a sense, but during the day, I actually work for ABC News in the States as a web developer, and then at night, I'm like Dexter. If you ever watch that show, I just don't kill people. I just do development on the side, so it's kind of like that. So I also love beer and JavaScript, which is great, because when you're building a platform like Untappd, which I'll tell you about, you can crack it open a six-pack and start developing and testing. You can't go wrong with that. It's a great solution. So who here has heard of Untappd? Raise your hand. Wow. My mom would be really happy about that. It's crazy. People in other countries know about this thing. It's great. So basically what Untappd is, it's a social discovery service for beer. The best way to describe it, like Brian says, it's like Foursquare for beer. So you can check in your beer, add these really cool gamification elements that can tell you how much of a beer drinker you are and how cool you are against your friends. You can earn badges for doing certain activities, like drinking a lot of sour beers, IPAs, going to different places. So it's a great way to kind of explore different tastes around the world. Also, it's a very big social element as well, so you can share across all networks. And the cool thing here is that basically, no matter where you are, you can brag to your friends you're having the best beer in the world, and they can get really jealous of you and never talk to you again, but that's not really the point of our application. The most important part of what we do is really around the geolocation element of beer. Because beer is so distributed all around the world, sometimes you just don't know where to find your favorite beer. So with the platform, we basically geotag all these check-ins so we can tell you where your beer is being served, where you should get it, where the top trending spots are around the world. So if you go to a new place for the first time, if you're in Amsterdam for the first time, or you're not sure where you can go, you can open up the app. It can tell you the trending spots, trending beers, so you never feel like you haven't lost the local flavor. So, this is a little bit about what the growth of our application is like. We've started out as a two-man team, two-man operation. I'm the only developer. And we've grown from 0 users to about 780,000 users on the application, all throughout PhoneGap. We've around 45 million check-ins across the service, and around 6,000 beer-related photos. I'm going to stress that. And that's a really cool feature we added with the PhoneGap platform. These are cool little stats that I've been able to pull out. Basically, around every hour, an average of about 5,000 beers are checked in on the service. That's 5,000 regular beers people are consuming every hour, which is great to show that the world is really alcoholic, and that's awesome. So on a monthly basis, we almost do about three-quarters of a million of photos added to the application. I never thought photos would be a really cool feature of the app, but I was very wrong because people love to take pictures of photos of beers. They frame it up perfectly with the bottle and the glass. And then you're like, okay, just drink the beer. But it's okay, you can do that as well. So I guess the question we get asked a lot is, how did this happen? How did you figure out that you want to make a service around beer and checking them in? Because those two things don't really kind of mesh together. So, I always say it always started with a beer. But in reality, it didn't. But it sounded really poetic to say that in the presentation, so I added it in there. But, really what happened is, we had this idea that we wanted to basically connect people and beer better. And we wanted them to be able to share all across the world and be able to encourage people to try different beers. And, there was a lot of things out there about beer, and it's very social. You go to the pub, you're talking with your friends, you're having a pint. But we wanted to take that same experience and put it on the web and put it in more of a social network feel that didn't have the kind of limitations that a Facebook or Twitter did, where it's too broad. So where do we start? How do we figure out where we want to go? I mean, this was a very infant idea when we first started. We weren't sure how we wanted to do it, but we know we wanted to be on mobile. So the very first thing back in 2010 is that we created a HTML5 mobile app. This was a web app only. We weren't sure how it was going to be perceived. We weren't even sure really about the limitations we could have with the platform or whether we wanted to go fully native. And we found that the solution in September of 2010 worked really well for us because the major thing that we found is that everyone in the world had different types of phones, but the web lived on every single one of them. So we were able to launch on day one on iOS, Android, WebOS, BlackBerry 6, and a lot of other phones as well, just by using the HTML5 app. And that actually took us above our competitors a lot, because they were focused on one platform, as we heard in the previous presentation. It just doesn't work. It didn't work back then. It doesn't work right now. So with the HTML5 as our goal, we're able to market on all these different platforms and get people on it early on. We actually used, we didn't use a framework to build the app. We didn't use something like jQuery Mobile or Seneca Touch, because frankly, back then, it wasn't really existing. There were early alpha versions of it, and nothing really satisfied what we were looking for. So we kind of built our own custom framework in a sense, and we still use jQuery. And then the biggest thing we found with the app when we first started is the social integration was key. People were sharing on Twitter and Facebook that they were alcoholics and their bosses would get all upset. So that was great, because that helped us really grow. That was important for us to get our leg in the door. So as our web app kept going and getting bigger, our growth got awesome. And we were looking at these numbers and we're like, wow, this is fantastic. We're spending all this time on this. We're getting all these users. It's fantastic, but we had some problems with this approach. The web app can only take you so far. There are some major problems that, for user acquisitions that you need to take into effect. The biggest one that I still to this day have a hard time understanding is it's a web app, which means people have no idea what to do or where to get it. You basically walk into a bar or walk into a restaurant and you say, hey, you heard of Untappd before? And you're like, yeah. How do I get it? Well, first thing you want to do is you want to go to untappd.com on your mobile phone. You want to add it to your home screen. You've lost the user at that point. They're so confused. They don't know what to do. They're like, oh, well, I want to download it in the App Store. Oh, no, it's not in the App Store. It's on the web, the internet. If you have it on your phone, everyone has it. Oh, I don't understand that. I don't want that. So you've lost that user, and they got confused about what the platform is all about. Second of all, I'm a web developer, and my co-founder is also a web developer. We want to be able to put this app on every single phone out there, but we just don't have the resources to basically hire native developers to do all the phones that we want to do. And it makes it very difficult to expand in those markets if we have to outsource that project, and we lose some of the awesome UI and the awesome control that we have over the application. We want to be able to build on the web, because that's what we think is the future of apps. Also, on the web, you can't really take advantage of native features of the phone. One of in iOS 5 and 6, you really didn't have the control over the camera. Geolocation was there, but you didn't have control over some native controls over connections and stuff like that really basically took your app to the next level and made your app differentiate itself between the web and a native front. So it's a really important feature that was lacking in HTML5 at the time. So our solution, obviously, if it wasn't PhoneGap, we wouldn't be here, but it was PhoneGap. And that's really what we used to basically bridge the gap between our web and our mobile, our native platform. So basically, what did we do? We took our existing skills in web development and we said, let's port this application over, and let's add some really cool plugins and features to make it worthwhile for each platform. Really, we took our existing mobile app and we morphed it over to PhoneGap. And I'll talk about that a little later and how that worked, but it was a very seamless process for us. And once we got into a PhoneGap shell and a wrapper, we were able to customize it very quickly and then easily deploy that version over to multiple app stores across the board. One of the cool things that we love to do is we can hook into native plugins, like the Facebook Connect plugin, which allows us to connect directly with Facebook with the native application. No more web view kind of login. No one knows their password anyways. A side note, on Untappd, people reset their passwords about 10,000 times per day because they're so alcoholic they don't remember anything at all. But that was a great plug-in for us to be able to connect to and made our app a lot better. So the question I get asked a lot after we do this whole process of converting over to PhoneGap, what happens? How did it work? Well, here's the growth we have after. This little in August of 2011, that was our first version of our PhoneGap app, and we re-released it in August of 2012. As you can see, this growth goes skyrocketed. And the main reason why is now that we're in the App Store and we're discoverable, people lose this, this perception of, oh, it's a web app. I don't know how to use it anymore. Now I just go search for it and my friends can find it in the store. So that's a really big benefit to us from a discovery perspective. So within the first month that we released, we signed up 25,000 users, which is awesome because previously we were averaging around 1,000 users per month. So we jumped up hugely on that scale. The activity of the users increased over 300% on that first month of the launch. Also, my wife told me that the app actually got featured in the top 50 of social networks. I don't have a screenshot of this, but I'll take her word over it because I'll be in trouble if I don't. So that's really cool to see that kind of pop up on that list there. So that's the kind of success that we had. One of the things that we love to talk about as developers and also as users is that we love an app. And I think one of the things that get lost a lot with app development is it doesn't really matter to the user what platform you're using or what UI framework you're using. It matters. Users want to like an app because they want it to work. And it doesn't matter really whether it's PhoneGap or whether it's native application. They just want an app. And that's really what we're trying to do with the PhoneGap platform. Is that we're building on HTML5, and to the user, they shouldn't have to know, oh, the app is HTML5, oh, it's PhoneGap. Like Brian has said, they want PhoneGap to not exist in a sense, and that's kind of what happens to the user. They just want a good experience. So we're getting a lot of positive feedback from the app, and they don't really care that it's HTML5. They just care that it works, and it's a good experience. So I guess, on this slide, talking about why PhoneGap and why PhoneGap for us, I think the major point for us is the open source part of the situation. Being that we're a two-man team, self-funded, working part-time, free and open source is a great combination for any type of technology platform. And that's really important to us. As well as you can able to use your existing skill set as HTML5 developers to build really, really cool applications without a lot of complex native coding in each individual platform language. That's a major plus. Obviously, the thriving developer community, that's why we wouldn't be here today without you guys. That's a major reason why I love PhoneGap over everything else is because everyone commits code, everyone publishes to the community, the groups, and it makes it a more worthwhile experience for us. And the plugins are my favorite part of PhoneGap. If you can't find something that is baked into the actual platform that you need to do, somebody probably wrote a plugin for it, and that's an awesome community feature to have as part of our platform. So at this point, really, I want to talk about some fun stats because data is awesome, and this is a really cool part of what Untappd's all about. So first and foremost, the average user on Untappd drinks 19 beers per month. Now, I don't know if that's really mainly US-based. They didn't do it over a national thing, but I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But I don't really care because that's good for our service. They just check in all the time, so that's fantastic. I am not at this level, but hopefully in the future I will be if I'm not dead by then. So one of the things about the process from porting from mobile to our PhoneGap took about 12 hours of code. And that is really, really significant. We basically coded that all over to all 4 platforms, Android, iOS, BlackBerry, and Windows phones, all together in 12 hours. And that's pretty amazing to have 4 apps in that kind of period. Now after that 12 hours, we did have to tweak a few things for the different platforms, but on top of it, it's very easy to translate your mobile version to PhoneGap very easily. This is my favorite stat of all time. I love this because it really basically shows the essence of what Untappd is all about. And on St. Patrick's Day 2012, the word Guinness, which is, I guess is a commonly misspelled word, 2,500 times misspelled in our database. I saw things like GQURV7245, and that's not Guinness at all on any standards. So, one of the things we're working on is a better search engine. But on top of that, it's fun to see these kind of stats pop up every once in a while about alcoholism. So that's great. So that's pretty much it for me. You can check out Untappd on all the 4 major markets phones. And if you have any other questions, I have some stickers to give away as well if you like that kind of stuff. And that's pretty much it. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Greg. So I have a question. What's your favorite beer?
Oh, that's like $1 million question, Brian. You can't put that on me like that. But I would have to say there's a brewery out in California, Santa Rosa. It's called Russian River, and they make a beer called Pint the Elder. It's a double IPA. It's probably the sweetest beer ever. And you only get it really in 3 parts of the U.S., California, Colorado, and Philadelphia. So it makes it very hard to obtain. But if you find the Untappd app, it will tell you where to get it. So.
Yeah. I like Blind Pig by them.
Yeah, that's very good too.
Yeah.
Very good too.
All right, thanks a lot. Next up we have Jorge.